Here we go. Welcome to the Transform with Travel podcast, where we share stories of personal transformation and life lessons through our experiences of traveling and exploring the world. Travel is the ultimate accelerator for personal growth, and it can be the root catalyst for the pivots and plot twists we make in our lives. I'm your host, Kelly Tolliday, and it's my mission to inspire you to live life to its fullest, travel with an open mind and heart, and let the world show you a new perspective. I'm so grateful you're here with us today, so let's dive right in. Happy exploring.
There we go.
All right, here we go. Welcome, Jen. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Transform with Travel. That's the name of my blog, right? Transform. Welcome to the podcast, Jen. We're so happy to have you here and share your story. We have known each other now since 2015, I think. It's been almost 2 years. We met through a travel blogging outreach program that we were both in at the same time. And then we connected and realized, wait, we're both going to be in Sydney at the exact same time. And we quickly, latched onto each other and adventured through Sydney and, enjoyed our friend group and went on multiple different little weekends away and lots of adventures, lots of crazy nights.
Yeah.
You don't have to go too deep into those ones.
No.
For your little flat in Double Bay and just like being so close to the beach and taking an Uber over to your house and just having so much fun and adventuring together is just so much fun. And so have really seen you grow from, that point in your life in 2015 all the way to now, just, running a massive business, empowering, hundreds, if not thousands of women around the world. It's just been such a fun journey for me to see you grow and to see the business grow. And I just thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Oh my God, all those memories. I was thinking that today too, and I'm like, oh my God, how long have I known Kelly for? And I'm like, it's been a while. And obviously, how long did you live in Sydney for?
I was there 2014 to 2018. No, it was 5 years. So 2014 to 2019. Sorry, but we were, we like popped in and out to Asia for different bouts of time.
Yeah. And I'm like, I've been back a few times and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
I feel like you've been back to Oz more than I've been back to Oz at this stage.
No, definitely not. I've only been back twice. Yeah, I've been back twice, 2018, and then I just spent New Year's there. Yeah, and that was amazing. But it's beautiful. It hasn't changed. Still one of my favorite countries in the world, and I miss it so much.
I know, but you know what? You can always go back. So that's the beauty of it. Is
okay. Tell me that the flight doesn't get harder and harder every single time, like on your body.
Yes, one on your body. So we went back in March 2022. Layla, our oldest, had yet to meet her entire Australian family. So it was her first time. So we're sitting in the seats and she's 18 months old, and everyone was like, how did she do? How did she do? And I'm like, she did fine. I did not. I did not do my back is broken forever now.
Yup. Oh my God, this last flight that I was there, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, my body. Like I landed and I just felt like so much water retention. I was like, I need to walk, but I also need to sleep. I haven't slept. I was like cranky. I was hungry. Oh my God. My body was like, what did you just do?
I know.
You haven't done that to me in a long time. Yeah, no, the good old 20s.
Really, we have to prepare so much more for that flight than we used to be. We should be able to like throw back a couple margaritas and jump on the flight.
Yes.
And now it's like,
and it would be fine. It'd be fine. You literally sleep for like the entire flight. You'd probably wake up at like the last hour and be like, oh, I'm already here.
Exactly.
Life is good.
Yeah. And we had so much fun. And I guess we can kind of start a little bit there, your story. So I know you share pretty openly about being a travel blogger, and particularly being a broke travel blogger, and really like packing up your life and moving, from New York over to Australia. And if you can kind of give a little background about like what was going on in your life at that time and how you really turned a kind of like challenging time in your life into something that was like the catalyst for such change for you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm very excited to be here. I love that you reached out to me, and I love talking about this stuff and sharing all the knowledge and everything I've learned. God knows I've learned so much. But I started travel blogging 2015. February of 2015 is when I kicked off my business. And the catalyst to all of it was back in September 10th, 2010. It'll be 13 years. It's crazy.
Wow.
My younger brother passed away, and I would have for the next 5 years from 2010 to 2015, I struggled with a lot of mental health. And I was in a really dark place, um, mentally, physically, emotionally. Not really taking the time to heal the loss of my brother. We were Irish twins. We were 14 months apart, super close. And I remember that day like it was yesterday, which is crazy because I could literally tell you bit by piece if I close my eyes what I was wearing, what I was doing. It's crazy. How much our mind like really keeps on to those strong moments. And so I had at a point in my life, I had several rock bottoms. Like, I don't believe we had like this one magical rock bottom. I think we have several of them. We're human, right? We need to learn things several times. And so I had hit several rock bottoms in my life prior to quitting my corporate job to become a travel blogger. And the very last one, remember looking at myself in the mirror, drunk, and not really being happy with what I was seeing, and the reflection of who I was. And I am a firm believer, always have been, that we are the creators of our reality and that we have the choice to make a difference in our lives. That yes, circumstances happen and things happen, but we really ultimately do have that choice to change what we want the most. And so I had my come to Jesus moment and realized I wasn't happy, and great, I'm going to fix it. And so I set up a plan. And, I look back at it and I was the power of putting pen to paper, I cannot say this enough. And I think that is like the basic of any change you want to make in your life. Anybody that's listening, I think the most important thing is like something as silly as that. I don't think we put there's not enough power and emphasis on this. Like, put your thoughts on paper. Because when you can talk about it and you can maneuver it in here all you want, but the moment it comes out of your mouth into paper, like the game changes, and the manifestation, like the possibility of you achieving what you want, becomes so much better. From there, create that plan, create that list, add dates to your list, right? And so I gave myself 7 months to sell shit, pack up stuff, quit my 9 to 5. I was working in New York City at an agency, a marketing agency, to quit my 9 to 5 and get on the road. And so I started my blog, and I was called The Social Girl Traveler. And I carried clean water filters to developing countries, and I worked with social and sustainable brands. And I did that for about 3.5 years. And then I ended up in Australia. Well, I've always wanted to go to Australia. Australia for me had been on my bucket since I knew it existed. I was like 7. And I was like, I want to be a surfer.
Was it
And
Mary-Kate and Ashley that did that for
Yes,
you?
yes, of course, of course. And it was, I remember like telling my mom I want to learn to surf, and we're from New Jersey, like Hoboken, West. If anybody's listening right now and you're in the East Coast, like Bergen County, Hudson County area, we're 20 minutes outside of New York City. The only ocean we have is the Hudson River, and ain't nobody getting in that water.
Yeah. Mm.
And so my mom was like, "What? What are you gonna get into?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. We could go to the beach. The beach is like an hour, 2 hours, depending on the traffic." I was like, "Get out of your head. You're not gonna surf nowhere." And my brother wanted to be a marine biologist. He was younger, so we
Mhm.
would we loved the water. So every time we went on vacations to the Keys, we would go down to the Keys, and we'd spend a whole month down there. We would go snorkeling and then we learned we were pretty good swimmers. So we'd like go down and like free dive and all the things. And it's obviously as an adult, like now I've expanded more on that, but that's what we wanted to do. And so we told my mom, I'll never forget this. We found a program in Sydney. It was like a marine biology program, and we both wanted to go. My mom was like, "You guys are so cute."
Oh,
My mom just handed us fish fins and snorkels. It was like, just go in the canal. Like,
yeah.
just get back there. That's your Sydney right there. Like,
Exactly.
you're not going that far. But yeah, and so I'd always wanted to go to Sydney, and I was in Bali, which is also one of my other favorite places in the world. And I was only supposed to be in Bali for like a week, and I ended up being in Bali for like a month. Like, oh, what a tragedy that was.
Exactly.
Yeah. You lived there for a while, didn't you? You were there for like a couple months.
I lived in Bali. Yeah, I think all up we've probably spent like 4 or 5 months there,
Yeah,
across different points in time. But yeah, I think
yeah,
the longest that we've spent there is at one time is probably like 2 or 3 months.
yeah. I remember. And so I was there for like a month. Um, and I was like surfing in Uluwatu, and my flight was supposed to leave and it got canceled because of that volcano. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I just kept pushing my flight out because I was having so much fun. I'm like, I don't need to go nowhere. Um, and then I was like, I'm really close to Australia. I really want to go to Australia. And so I flipped a quarter, and that was the determining factor.
Oh my
I was going
gosh.
to go to Australia because it was either go back home, because I didn't have a lot of money. I had like literally $500 in my bank account. And I was like, either I go back home and like go back to make money, or I go to Australia and then I continue my blog and create, magic out of that. So I flipped a coin. I bought the $250 flight to Australia from Bali.
Wow.
And then I landed, and I was like, oh shit, what am I doing here? And I remember I landed and you weren't in town. You were away. Um, and you remember Dan? Remember Dan flying solo? You remember Dan?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I messaged Dan. Dan was also not in town. And then I had like two other friends, and they were all travel bloggers, so nobody was in town. And I was like, oh my God. So I just landed in a country. I have no friends, and I don't have a job, and I have $400 in my bank account, or $300 in my bank account. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh my God, what the fuck do I do? And in a week, I found an apartment with a flatmate, a job. Um, and that was it. The rest was history. But
Yeah.
that's how I ended up in Australia. Yeah.
But in Sydney, like I could imagine looking at your bank account and then looking at what the weekly rent was gonna cost and thinking, oh no, what do I do?
I literally was like, okay, in order for me, I need a job first. And it just so happened, honestly, like I think that there's such a power in saying what you want
Mm,
and it being 100% committed, like your whole body, like a whole body yes. And you didn't like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I was just like, oh no, this has to work. There's no choice, right? Um, and I literally, so I had booked through my credit card an Airbnb for the weekend in Paddington.
oh yeah.
And yeah, and I was like, okay, I have 3 days here. And oh, when I landed in Sydney, there was like a huge monsoon. So the entire weekend it was raining, which was a blessing because it didn't, like I couldn't go out, nothing was open except the supermarket. And all I could afford in the supermarket was cheese and bread and oatmeal.
Oh
I
my
was like,
God.
that was so expensive. And so I remember like getting there that first night. And mind you, I had been backpacking at this point for 3 months through Southeast Asia. So I hadn't had like my own room, my own apartment or anything. So this own like apartment to myself. And I was like painting my nails. I had a bottle of wine. I was watching Sex in the City. And my best friend calls me. And she's like, oh my God, you're not going out. It was a Saturday. And I was like, no, there's a big rainstorm outside. But I was half a bottle in, so I was already drunk. And I was like, I'm having so much fun though, like I'm painting my nails, whatever. And she's like sitting there and she's like, okay, so like, where are your friends? I'm like, oh, nobody's here. And she's like, okay, so is this your new apartment? And I was like, no, I'm only here till like Sunday. She's like, Sunday, no, Monday morning. And she's like, Monday morning's like a day and a half away.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yeah. And I'm like painting my nails, whatever. And she's like, okay. And she's like, how about a job? Like, did you get any clients over there? And at this point, I was doing travel blogging, but I was also doing social media management. And
Mhm.
all of my clients were in the US and I was wrapping up their contracts. So I didn't have anything coming in for at least another 30 days. And I was like, I remember like putting my head up and looking at her and being like, she looks at me and she goes, so you're telling me you're literally on the other side of the globe. You have no place to live, no money, you have no friends. She's like, Jennifer, what the fuck are you gonna do? And I'll never forget like looking up and being like, oh my God, what did I do? And like the wrath of like overwhelm and anxiety just like swept in and I was like, and I just started crying. And
Oh,
she was like, no, it's gonna be fine. Like if anybody can figure out, like I know you can figure out, I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, what do I do? And even the hostels in Sydney were like stupid expensive.
stupid expensive.
And they were disgusting. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And so after crying for like 30 minutes and hanging up the phone, I took a shower and I realized that I was like half a bottle in. And I was like, it's 11 o'clock at night. You're not gonna get a job and you're not gonna make any good friends right now. It's like, so go to sleep. and wake up tomorrow morning and figure it out. And that's exactly what I did. I woke up literally 9 a.m. the next morning. I had breakfast. I sat down at the coffee table and I messaged everyone. I think I messaged you too. And I was like, do you know anybody that needs clients right now? Like, I'm talking Monday morning. I need, like, give me something to do. And I emailed everybody I knew, messaged them through Facebook. And my friends got back to me and they were like, oh, I can put you in contact with this person. And it just started to momentum and kick off. And I had a lunch meeting Monday afternoon with somebody who hired me right on the spot. And I told her, right, full transparency, I'm like, I need a deposit right now because I have to book an Airbnb. And so book the Airbnb. It just so happened, I only booked it for one night. And it just so happened that the woman that I ended up booking it with, and this is so beautiful, the woman I ended up booking it with had a 2-bedroom apartment, and her husband was a professor up in Queensland. And she would go, he just got this big job. So they weren't going to move up there for a while. And she wanted to go on the weekends, but because a lot of their income was coming from this Airbnb, she didn't have anybody to manage it, and she didn't have anybody that she trusted. So she was like, I said to her, and I'm like, I'll tell you what, I will pay these next 2 days. And then I was like, and let me stay in your living room and manage the booking for the next month. And I'll take care of everything until I find a place. Because I told her my situation, and she was like, okay, deal. And then I was like, thank you. I was like, I'll clean. Like, I know how to do that. I know how to run an Airbnb. Like, yeah, you'll never get a complaint. And it was December. And so she was like, yeah, okay, no worries. Not at all. It was end of November. It was mid-November, beginning of December. And I lived there for about 3 weeks without having to pay anything. And then she realized, she was like, she loved me. And she was like, you know what? Like, I don't want to do Airbnb anymore. Do you just want the rent starting the rest of the year? Because we're booked out. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so she like helped me out. I got my bedroom, and at the start of January 1st, I had that apartment. But that, like, all within 1 week, I got a job, I had a place to stay. And then you guys came back like a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
And that was it, and that was history. But
so we talk a lot on this podcast about like get creative. Like, you
mm-hmm.
don't have to have all the money in the world. You don't have to have a full plan. Like, if you're creative, if you're scrappy, if you don't look at roadblocks as like road endings, just instead of it being like the end of the road, you're thinking of it as more of just like an obstacle to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
You can just find the most amazing opportunities in the world to
Mm-hmm.
be able to find a place to live when you only have 1 day left on your Airbnb, be able to find a client when you've got $400 left in your bank account. A lot of people would be afraid or fearful of, taking that leap and going around the world. You had a purpose behind it with the social good aspect of it, of bringing clean water filters, but also a lot of people would have been pretty fearful of that dwindling bank account or not knowing what the next step is. Do you think the passing of your brother really fueled your shift in perspective, or your shift in like, you know what, I've got to live my life and I've got to be out there in the world? Like, how do you think that overcoming those senses of anxiety as those roadblocks started coming your way, how do you think that mindset really helped you navigate that?
Yeah, that's such a good question. 100%. Like, I lost my brother at 21. Have you ever read the book, The Defining Decade?
No.
Okay, well, you should, because it's really good. And anybody who's listening, you should read it, especially if you're in your 20s. But a lot of it talks about how women, like our personalities are molded in our 20s. And so at 21, I had my brother, my best friend, literally die. So my entire life flipped upside down. And not only was it that, but I had to deal with the aftermath of it all, right? Like, my parents, my parents are still together, but they had a really rough time. And and Kelly, I mean, you know this, I'm Cuban American. I come from a very close family, and then you can relate to that. And family to me is everything. And so really going through something like that, and then having to deal with your mental health, your depression, your anxiety, the grief that you go through, because it's not, life goes on for everybody else, but not for you. And that's one of the hardest things that people don't recognize. So I've lost a lot of friends. I was my last year of college, and to be honest, I probably shouldn't have gone back to school. But that would have probably, like, now looking back at it, if I didn't go back to school, I probably wouldn't have graduated. I probably would have never gone back. So it's it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, and I know I have a marketing degree. So essentially I did use my bachelor's degree in what I do today. because it's a lot of my core. But the way I began to look at life at a really young age really shifted for me. Like there were certain things that didn't matter anymore, and my perspective on life in general. And unfortunately, like somebody who's listening to this who's been through something similar would resonate very much so. If you haven't been through that something as traumatic, it's going to be hard for you to understand the value and the weight. I love so much harder because I know the value of what it would look like if it was taken away.
Mm.
And I'm not just talking about in relationships, I'm talking about in friendships and all the things. And so what I did, and that was my awakening moment when I was working the 9 to 5, I was like, why am I doing this? What happened to my brother was a tragedy, and it was a wrong place, wrong time. He didn't have a choice. I have a choice. I get to wake up every day, and I'm waking up and I'm miserable. What the hell's the point? You know? And when and the truth is that, like, listen, life isn't rainbows and butterflies. Like, it's been 13 years. I've healed. I understand my brother's death. Like, I've processed that. I'm in a much better place than I was a long time ago. But you go through stuff like that in life all the time. You know, this year has been one of the most transformative times in my business ever. I've gotten to learn so much more about who I am and what I want for my business and my future. And there has been days where I've woken up this year and I've been like, God, I don't want to do this. Like, why am I doing this? But it gives you a different, like, taste. If I could, like, when I quit my job to travel the world, I was so numb to society and to the day to day that I was really looking, and that's where the traveling came in and healing, where I was really looking for, like, that connection with other people. And so traveling really opened that up for me. It like allowed me, like, humanize life again, like to feel good, to have those moments of like, oh my God, this is a delicious cupcake in Spain. You know what I mean? Like I walked to the Camino. This is an amazing experience. Like really feeling and not being so like numb to everything that was going on because I was depressed. And so 100% fueled my ability to be like, this is going to work. And the other thing too is that, like, there's nothing more dangerous than someone who doesn't care what other people think of them. Because
Mm.
ultimately, like, in my heart, like, if you can walk through what I had walked through and come out on the other side the way I came out, great. But if you'd never walk in my shoes, then I don't care what you say. And I think that's something really important. People take advice from other people that have never done or been through what they had been through or want to do what they want to achieve. And it's like, go to people who've done what you want to do and have that conversation with them. Don't talk to someone who works, in corporate for 20 years and you want to go and quit your job. Like, they're going to tell you all the reasons why you shouldn't because they never have, Yes, it's hard. Definitely not easy. It's one of the most rewarding things, but it's definitely not for someone who isn't willing to risk, right? So it was the fuel behind my resilience for sure. And
Yeah.
it's just like the meaning of life, like I want to get to the end. I said this the other day. I was like, I'm gonna get to the end with like ripped up jeans, and not because I bought them, but
Yeah.
because I've like run through them on the way down,
Yeah, you
and
you
like
earn those holes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it really sounds like to me what you're saying is that experience of taking that leap and starting the travel blog and seeing the world, and like you said, using your grief when you were ready to really fuel the fire to almost like re-engage with life again and understand
Yeah,
the full range of human emotion, not just like you said, this cupcake tastes really, really good and the
yeah,
completing the, Camino, but also
yeah,
understanding that like you can experience those highs because you have experienced such depths of the lows.
yeah.
Speaking of the Camino, I would love to hear a little bit of your experience of what that was like, any prep you've done. It's such a physically taxing experience, but also just emotionally taxing experience. Just what brought you to do that? And then, yeah, what it was like to actually be on that path.
So the Camino, anybody that's listening and wants to do it, it is not a vacation.
Yeah, right.
It's not like you're not going to, like, Dominican Republic and playing an all inclusive and like laying on the beach and vegetating. Like, you're walking, like the real Camino, because there were people that like pay to, like, you could pay somebody to carry your bag and all this stuff. And so let me give you some backstory. I had studied abroad in Spain, and the family that I lived with, their son had done the Camino, and that's the first time I heard about it. And so the Camino is a pilgrimage walk that happens from the south of France to the north of Spain, the main one. But essentially, you can walk the Camino from any point of Spain. And the end reaches Santa. No, oh my God, I just lost my. What is it? Oh my God, what's the name of that church that I can't think of right now?
I don't know the answer, so you could say anything and I'd believe you right
No,
now.
no, I know, but I literally have it at the tip of my tongue. Um, oh my God, are you Googling it? Please
Yep.
Google it.
Yep.
Yeah, what's the name of the church? The Compost. It's el Camino de Santiago. That's what it is. It's so the full name is the Camino de Santiago. So
Compostela.
it's the Church of Compostela. There we go.
There we
Thank
go.
you. So you reach that church. Apparently, that saint is buried there, and he people do the pilgrimage for two reasons: religious or personal, right? In olden days, the priests and the nuns used to walk the Camino on their knees.
Mm.
And it was a sign of the analogy behind the Camino is that you get to choose what you want to take in your life. And you can either have a road full of rocks or you can have a road full of flowers.
Mm.
And your backpack, what you take with you is what you ultimately need. So metaphorically speaking, think of your life. And as you get older, you put things in your backpack. You put memories, you put people, you put emotions, you put stories, rackets, whatever you talk about. And then eventually your backpack gets a little heavy or it gets a little lighter, depending on how you like to roll, right? So I did the Camino from Leon, from the midpoint. So it takes about 30 days to walk the entire Camino from the south of France to the north of Spain. And depending on where you start, whatever. The traditional Camino takes 30 days. I did it halfway. So I did from Leon to Santiago, which is about 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, which took me about 3 weeks. And so, and I did that for monetary reasons. I didn't have a lot of money. So I was like, all I can afford is like these 3 weeks. So this is what we're going to do because you can't work on the Camino. I didn't take my laptop. I took my phone and a camera and a journal, and that's it. You take what you can carry. Like that is the real way to do it. People like pay other people to take their bags and like leave it at the next stop. I'm not a fan of that. Like if you're going to do something, do it all the way. Like don't have ass that shit. And so I did it from Leon to Santiago. And the first day I got to Leon, I stayed at a monastery. I remember I rocked in and the priest was like taking my name. It was early in the afternoon. So you don't start walking till morning. They don't recommend that you like leave in the middle of the day because the road, like you're in the mountains by yourself. So like if I left in the afternoon, I probably would end up sleeping in the woods, which I was not okay with. So I stayed in Leon. And so I walked into this monastery. I registered my name and I had this huge ass bag and it was like a backpack. And it was full, like to the top. And I had like a cushion ass, like towel to take a shower. I had like all these toiletries, whatever. And he started laughing and he's like, "Can I offer a piece of advice?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And he's like, "Listen, the point of the Camino is that you take what you can. You do not take everything." And he explained it to me. He's like, the analogy is that in your life, you will have things that you need to get rid of, things you need to take with you. And so you get to choose what you want. And then he's like, go to your room, your bed. And I was in a room with 15 other people. And he's like, lay everything out. And if you would mind me giving you advice on what you need, we donate. And then you can leave this stuff here and we could donate it because people come and go. And I was like, okay, cool. So I lay everything out. He comes over and he's like, hey, you don't need this, whatever. The towel, I had this huge ass towel. It took up so much space and it was like a heavy towel. And he was like, you don't need this. And I'm like, what do I dry myself with? And I had a face, like an instant dry, like face towel that was literally like the size of my torso.
Yeah.
It was like, he literally lifted it up. He put it against my body and it covered my chest to like the bottom. This is all you need. And I was like, what about the back? He's like, you'll be fine. I was like, what the fuck? But I mean, it saved up so much space and it really made a huge difference. So every time I got out of a shower, and by the way, these are communal showers. So I'm not in a private bathroom. I got out of the shower. It was a women's only. Got out of the shower and I was like literally like be up against a wall with a towel just covering the
Oh
By
my
the end
God.
of the Camino, I was like, I don't fucking care. I was just like butt naked. I was like, who cares? We all have the same thing. But it was like that goes to show you. And I had like all these leggings and these little tank tops and all these things. Didn't know. By the end of the Camino, I swear to God, I had that little towel. I had 2 pairs of socks, 4 pairs of underwear, 2 pairs of leggings. I had shorts for when it rained, and then I had long pants for when it was cold. And I had 2 t-shirts. And then I had a set of pajamas, and that's it. I would wash everything at night when I came to the apartments, and I would hang it, and that was it. And that is what I carried. And I had my journal, a camera, and my phone. And I ultimately didn't need my camera. I could have just taken my phone. But that is what I had, and that is what I started the Camino. And for me, the Camino was such a beautiful experience because I didn't realize how much healing I really needed to do. And I genuinely think that that was the start of it. I had a lot of time to myself. Out of the 3.5 weeks, I would say 2.5 of them I spent completely alone. At night, when I got to where I was sleeping, there was people there and I connected with people. But the moment I started walking, I was by myself. So there were times where I was like on a road for hours alone. And I was just talking to myself. I was talking to animals. I was journaling. I was crying. Like, a lot comes through when you're by yourself. A lot of fears, a lot of insecurities. And of course, I was talking to my brother. So a lot of it was like healing that and letting that go. And it was interesting because I met so many people that were in a rush to get to the next place because they had a timeline. And there I was on my road with no timeline because I had no 9 to 5. I technically had just started my own business. And I could take 3 weeks or I could take 10 weeks. It ultimately didn't matter. It was up to me. But I just kept trying to grab onto people because I didn't want to be by myself. And when I realized that, like a week and a half in, I was like, oh my God. I mean, think about it metaphorically in life, right? And I'm just like comparing myself to people that I grew up with, my own sister, family, friends, where it's like everyone's doing the thing, they're checking the boxes, and it's beautiful, like everybody wants that. But it just didn't go like that for me. And I had a choice. And I could either be in the moment and be present and enjoy it, or I can rush through this Camino because I had to get somewhere when ultimately I really didn't have to get anywhere. So it was one of the most, I want to go back and I want to do the whole thing. And I think that when I do that, that'll be I could probably write a book. I probably will write a book during that process. But yeah, it was one of the most, that's what kicked everything off for sure.
Right. And I love what you said about there's other people that were on their own timeline and they had to get from A to B in a certain point. And it must have been at a certain point, like, man, I'm really on my own path, literally, figuratively, like I'm forging my own way. And I'm sure that would, at least for me, kind of feed into that little bit of sense of isolation. Like nobody else is going through this. I'm doing things on my own. People back home are doing
100%.
all the things, like you said, checking off the checklist. So it sounds like that was a really like pivotal point in your transformation. Can you just like place in time, like what year was that? So you said you had just started your business. Was that back in 2015?
That was in 15. Yeah. So I did it. I did the Camino end of March, beginning of April.
Okay.
2015. And so I left the United States February 22nd, went to London, which was so stupid because I did my master's in London. London's one of the most expensive. Actually right now it's not so bad because of the dollar, but it's at that time it was so stupid. So stupid. But I had a lot of friends there, had a lot of connections. So it worked out because I ended up pulling 2 social media clients during that time. That ran with me for about 6 months from that point. And so that was really nice. That was a nice, like, passive income that came through, and there wasn't a lot of work that I needed to do with those people. And so that's where, and then from there I just went to Spain. And then after the Camino, I stayed in Spain for a while. I went down to Sevilla and I was in Sevilla for a bit. But yeah, it's very interesting because I don't think we realize how much we hold on to things. People really don't like change. Like including myself, like we really don't like change. And it's hard for you when you're doing something for a really long time, even when you're friends with someone, when you have a routine, to step out of that. And how much you hold on to those things. And I don't think people actually realize how much it is. And so for me, it was a very interesting perspective. And like now that I'm, sitting where I sit now, it's always been a lesson that I've had to learn in life over and over. Like the next level is a new devil and it requires a different person. And what that means that there's shedding of old skin, there's shedding of old relationships, shedding of old habits.
Yeah. That reminds me of a little bit. There's the in yogic texts, there's the 2 cornerstones of yoga, and I'm not even going to attempt to say the Sanskrit names, even though I've been studying for 10 years. But the 2 cornerstones of yoga is keep with the vision, keep with the faith, keep the trust, but then at the same time, keep letting go. So it's never
Yeah.
give up, keep letting go, never give up,
Yep.
keep letting go. And that kind of is like
What
the
is it?
Camino in a nutshell is
It is. It
never
is.
give up, keep one foot in front of the other. And at the same time, keep throwing out that cushy ass towel out of your bag. Cause that's
What is
holding
it?
you
The
down.
yamas and the yamas and the niyamas, or the niyamas and the
Yeah.
yamas.
That's
You know
sort
what
of
I'm
the
talking
8
about?
limbs. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, when I read the
exactly.
book, when I read that book, I literally had made the same correlation. I'm like, oh my God, this is the Camino. By the way, I read The Alchemist on the
Yes.
Camino. It's one of my favorite books. I've read that book like 16 times. But for me, that was a real reflection of that as well. It
Mm,
really is like move one step. We're so focused on 20 steps when all that ultimately matters is that one foot right in front of the other as you continue to let go of
yeah,
whatever is holding you back. Because the older you get, the harder it is. And true.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned your social media management
Mhm.
business when you had first started it back in
Mhm.
2015, and you were
Yeah.
also doing travel blogging at the same time. You were into social enterprise and doing social good, um, and you kind of moved through and navigated through all the ups and downs of being a solopreneur for a really long time. At what point did you then transition into what you're doing now, which is being a business coach, a very successful business coach for women to really empower them to step into that CEO energy, the CEO of their own business? And now it's, I believe, a $500,000 business, which is just incredible. So how did you go from that $400 in your bank account in Sydney, not knowing when the next
Yeah.
client was coming in, to now just absolutely killing it and sharing the education, sharing the wealth with women around the world?
So 2018. So the travel blogging, I mean, we were like the original, we were like the original influencers of
Yeah.
the world, right? Like we called ourselves influencers, were bloggers. And so brand deals were hard to come by. And when you
Hmm.
did come by them, anybody that's listening knows that you don't get paid right away. It's not like when you go to a supermarket and you buy something or you sell something, you instantly make that transaction. With influencer marketing, with that type of transaction, it takes time. Even if you wrote, because I also wrote for other publications, the fees wouldn't come in until much later. So to make a long story short, in 2018, I kind of reached a point where I was doing it all alone. I was exhausted. I was burning out. I was in $30,000 in debt. And I was like, this is not sustainable anymore. I cannot do this, and I'm exhausted.
Mm.
And I had a VA, and she was like everything. And she was helping me edit videos, negotiate contracts, all the things, whatever. And then I started to get asked to get on stages and teach people how to build a brand and what social impact was and all these things. So this was late 2018. And because I started to get asked, it was like a natural pivot. I launched my very first online course on how to build a brand online. And that online course was an $11,000 launch. And in that moment, I was like, holy shit, I got it. I was like, I see it. Like, I see the tunnel. Like, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I see the vision. Great. Let's go in that direction. And so this was November of 2018. I slowly began to pivot in 2019. So all of 2019, I spoke on a lot of stages. I launched a lot of programs, and I got crystal clear on the pivot and how I was going to do it.
Mm.
And then in late 2019, when I went to a hotel and I was actually able to pay for the hotel, and I could sleep in and I didn't have to wake up super early and follow this itinerary because I was working for the hotel. I had my moment where I was like, holy shit, I love this and I'm happy here and I want to do this. So I continued to build this brand. And then we all know what happened in 2020.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then yeah, and
Wait,
then
wait. Can
business
you
just
can you
got
let me know what happened in 2020?
everyone wanted to build an online business, and because I had already built a name for myself prior to that, it just skyrocketed. And I hit my first six figures in 2020. And then after that, it's just been tripling every single time. So ultimately, like, it was just a natural transition because I think I had built such an authority in my space and people knew who I was
Mm.
and what I was doing. And it was a lot easier. And then and that was it. And so here
Yeah.
we are now. And yeah.
Something that just really popped out to me is when, and anybody who hasn't been on a fam trip, on a media trip, worked with a brand in travel, was a travel influencer, blogger, vlogger, whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone really assumes that being a travel blogger influencer is very glamorous. And whilst yes, it
Yeah.
is amazing to like get flown to, I don't know if you end up going on that Indonesia fam trip, but there was a couple of us that were invited to go to Indonesia to tour with Tourism Indonesia.
Hmm.
And we looked at the itinerary and we were like, man, this looks really great. You know, come on. I don't know if you did it or not.
No, I didn't,
But
but
there,
I've done a ton of fan trips. Yeah.
yeah, you know.
Hmm.
So there's like,
Hmm.
day 1, Komodo Island, day 2, Bali, day 3, Lombok, which are
Yeah.
all 3 separate islands. And you think, man, that's really
They
cool. But
take like 4 hours to get to each island.
exactly. And then you're sitting there in your hotel room, editing all your pictures and posting on social media and doing your YouTube videos. And you're like, yes, I got to see snippets of this place, but I just spent 4 hours of my day downloading content, editing, publishing, scheduling. And so when you had
Yeah.
said, I paid for the hotel, I could sleep in, I didn't have to take pictures, like that,
Yeah.
like liberating feeling. And I remember exactly that point too, when that was happening with us. Um, so yeah, I really appreciate that. And for those listening who have done any sort of content will know
Yeah.
what that is like. Um, but also when you say that you went from, being an online coach, and then in 2020 was your first 6-figure year. And then every year after that, it's just been scaling and scaling and scaling. Yes, there are
Hmm.
things mechanically, logistically that you can do. Obviously there's sales funnels, there's marketing, there's this, but there has to be some sort of mindset shift within you to even be
Mm.
open to that possibility, right? And that's what you talk a lot about on your Instagram is you do talk
Hmm.
about there are formulas, there are funnels, there are A plus B equals C, but you don't get
Hmm.
from C to Z without unlocking a certain potential within your own mind. So can you describe like a little bit of like the mindset hacks that you've done over the years to really get yourself from A to B?
Oh my God, there's so many. That, like I said earlier, new level, new devil. The reason why entrepreneurs some only last for 3 to 5 years is because there are parts of you that you need to recognize and you need to own, and some people aren't willing to do that. And I'm not talking about woo woo anything. I'm talking about like just real parts of who you are as a human, being able to communicate thoroughly and have honest and open conversations with your team members, get people on board with a vision, right? Um, what got me to 6 figures is not what got me to 500,000, and it's
Mm,
what got me to 500,000 is not gonna get me to 1 million. It's a whole other way of looking and being and acting, um, and representing yourself and being honest with yourself. There's a level of integrity and dignity that you have to withhold that nobody's going to hold you to. Our society teaches us how to solve how to how to fix the problem, but not actually solve the problem. They teach us how to follow the rules, go to corporate job, climb the corporate ladder, be a director, finish, fill out your resume, do all the things. But when it comes to being at the top, you are the decision person. Our society doesn't teach us how to make decisions. And that is what you do as a CEO. I said this the other day, it takes courage to be a boss babe, but it takes grit to be a CEO.
mm,
Like the amount of like you are the one taking all the risk. You are the one not sleeping at night. You are the one putting your ass on the line for what you believe to be true, which is why having a why, as everyone's like, oh my God, have a why. Like, no, make sure this is the reason you wake up in the morning. Like, it's not because you believe in, like, oh my God, like, it has to be so deep that, of course, it should be selfish, but it has to be so deep that you are willing to change who you are because every single level will require that. When I hit, for me to get to 5,000, I had to recognize that I needed like support. I couldn't do it alone, right? Then to get to 10,000, it was really seeing the vision of who I wanted to become and stepping into that a little bit. The entire process where I am today is more and more becoming who I am and being unapologetically who I am.
mm,
I remember being at like the $5,000 mark and looking at someone who had $1 million business and just listening to them communicate to their team and being like, oh my God, she's so direct. Like, she's such a bitch. And like now that I sit close to that, I'm like, oh no, she wasn't a bitch. She was respecting her boundaries and she was withholding her vision.
mm.
And it's hard for us because we're not taught to do that. And men are. And don't get me wrong, I love men. And like I mean, you know I love men. Can't live with them, can't live without them, you know? And like, but it's hard. It really is hard. And men are taught to sit at a table and they are demanded respect. Whereas women are taught you have to earn your respect. And I don't think that's fair or equal. And I think I mean, we could do like another hour of this.
Yeah,
But like
totally.
like women, it is a different playing field. And it's not just rooted in our society, it's rooted in our culture, it's rooted in our DNA, it's who we are. We are taught to shh and be good girls. So when you build businesses and this statistic will blow your mind, Kelly. I heard this the other day, a couple weeks ago, and I was like, less than 2% of female founders will reach $1 million in revenue.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Girlfriend, that is unacceptable.
Yeah,
Like that needs to change. That has to
absolutely.
change.
And you're
Like
on a
that cannot
mission
be
to
a
make
thing.
that happen.
Oh,
That's
oh
your mission.
yes. Oh yes. I heard that and I was like, no, 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 no. Like we got to fix that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
think that yeah. So every part of who you want to become in the world requires a new vision. And it doesn't have to be like this great, like I want to be a movie star. I want to, you can have whatever you want. But ultimately getting there is always going to be different every single step of the way. And it's not easy.
Yeah, and I even think like it doesn't even have to be about business either. Like if you want to go from being an overwhelmed, chaotic mom into being a
Yep.
present, calm mom, it's not just about doing a couple breathing techniques and a couple mantras. Like that's some deeply rooted stuff that you have to go through yourself, how you were
Yep.
parented. And so, like you said, it's just next level in every aspect of your life. Same with your health, same with your relationships.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just advice that can be taken, really all across the board in all aspects of life. Um,
Absolutely.
the last question that I have for you is just I know it's the dreaded B word, but balance, right? So now owning $500,000 business plus
Yep.
being so connected to your family, you go and visit your nieces and your nephews all the time. You're so close to your family, but you're also now living in a different state from them. You're also traveling the world, speaking, all the different things, health, everything. So what do you do to help just like keep your head stable and steady? And, what are the things for you that kind of help you like bring yourself back to you when things get overwhelming?
So I'm gonna call myself out here. Like your audience is mostly mothers. And I have the utmost respect for moms. I hope to one day become a mom. I can't wait for the day I get to have my babies and I get to, squeeze those little shits. I'm an aunt. I'm an aunt of four, and I watch my sister run a business. She's a lawyer. Uh, Her and her husband own a firm together, and be a mom and be a wife, and it is really hard.
Mm,
I think that word balance is a facade, and I think it's dangerous because it's like this shiny object that I don't think it's possible, but I think it's the way you reframe it, and I think it really is about prioritizing what's important. And
mm,
I think that I say this like you cannot fill from an empty cup. Um, as an aunt, when I take care of my nieces and my nephew and I'm with them, all four of them by myself, everything that I want is on hold. So like if I need to
absolutely.
pee, I don't pee. Like
Yep.
if I need privacy, it doesn't happen because I'm with them. So if I could have like a little taste of motherhood, that is what I have tasted so far, but I'll never really understand it completely. So I will say that I think the rules are up to you and you do whatever you want with it. Never compare yourself to anybody because every body is different. Everybody has a different circumstance and like physical body and emotional, mental, etc.
Mm,
Um, and I will say it's really about prioritizing. Like ultimately, I can do 20 different things, but what is the most to me? What means the most to me and when? Um, I hope that I'm working so hard right now so that the day I do become a mother, I am allowed to be fully present with my kids because I have a business that runs itself, right? And I understand that some women don't have that privilege. So if you are listening and you are that person, I think it's one, not being so freaking hard on yourself. Like give yourself a pat on the back because you're doing something that is really hard. And second, it really is about prioritizing what's important. As a business owner, regardless of what you own, whether it's a yoga studio, Reiki, spiritual healer, whatever you are, or a cake shop, the number one thing you need to do in order to have a business is bring in money and have sales. So that should be your number one priority in the business. But whatever your number one priority is in life, whether it's your children, your husband, whatever, your partner, then that would over trump that. So I don't know if that was helpful.
No,
But
I
I
do,
think for me, it's really about prioritizing.
And that's so true, because when you said the number one goal of any business is bringing in sales, because without the sales, there's no business.
Yeah.
But then you said anything outside of that, like your health, your business, or your family, your partnership, like without you, there is no business. So if you're just like drowning yourself for the business and you're not prioritizing the things that make you you, whether that's going to spin class or going to the beach or getting a coffee with friends, then like you said earlier, like what's the point? So I think it's like you said, just getting really clear on what your priorities are at that any given time, because anything can shift month to month, year to year. And just being really honest with yourself. I think you mentioned previously, like just having really clear communication with yourself and like being really transparent and honest with yourself. So I appreciate that. Is there anything else? I always end the episode with some rapid fire questions, like just see what's on your mind, what's on your plate at this time. But is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap up the episode?
No, I mean, this has been amazing. Thank you for
It's
having
been
me. I
so
can't wait
fun.
to can't wait to share this.
I know, I'm so excited. All right, so rapid fire questions. I just
Go, I'm
love to
ready.
hear people's lists and goals. So number one, if you could only go back to one country, place, town, whatever it is, only one you can only go back to, where would it be and why?
And what, just like live there, visit?
Whatever that means to you. Visit. If you could, maybe let's say like if you could only go back and visit one place for the rest of your life, where would it be and why?
Oh, Australia.
Yeah.
Because I think it
Easy.
has everything.
Yeah.
I think you could, I think it has a beach, it has the snow, it has the culture. I love the people, all of it. So I would say Australia.
Good
I love it
choice.
there.
I'm a little biased, but I
Yeah.
think that's a good choice. Somebody else said
Yeah.
Sydney the other day,
You'd
and I
like
was
out.
like, I was like, okay, I like you. That was a good answer. Okay, so number
Yeah.
two is what's number one on your bucket list right now?
Travel bucket list.
Travel, business, whatever.
Okay. Number one on my, that's a good one. So number one travel on my bucket list is I want to go to Argentina because I haven't been. So that will happen probably in the next couple of months.
Cool.
And then bucket list in business, get my business to 1 million and keep it at 1 million. And
Love
then obviously keep growing from there. Yeah. Bucket list in life and like what I want to do next. Oh, I want to learn to skateboard. Which is currently what I'm working on.
Skateboard,
Yeah.
$1 million, Australia. I feel like those are like a recipe for success. You get a nice house in Byron Bay and just surf and skate all day, and there you go.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, number three is what's one of the biggest life lessons that you've learned through traveling or living overseas, whatever?
Patience. I've learned so many, but the first thing that just came to mind is I would say patience, but like patience with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, good. And then the last one is what is one piece of advice you'd give to an aspiring explorer?
Go. Get out, leave. It doesn't matter. If you've never left, you've never been in your home, like you've been in your hometown and you're listening to this, just go, get the hell out. You're never gonna regret it. Like you'll never be like, oh my God, I left and it was the worst experience of my life. Like, no, you'll have a wonderful time. Maybe your flight might be delayed. Maybe you might to reschedule. It's not a big deal. There are worse things. But I would say go. Go wherever it is you want to go, explore it, take yourself out to dinner, alone, spend time with yourself. And I don't think enough of us do that. And I think that is one of the most important and most valuable things you could do for yourself and your character.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you just share how our listeners can connect with you online or social media, whatever it is, or how they can learn more about your upcoming launches and programs?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at jennifer.morilla. I am there, always there. You can shoot me a DM. Let me know what you thought about this. And and we can connect from there. But if you watch me there, you will learn all the things. You can also go to jennifermorilla.com and you can sign up for my newsletter and get all the information. There's a quiz on there on what kind of entrepreneur you are, what kind of kryptonite entrepreneur you are, and that's always a lot of fun. But mostly on Instagram. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I'm like so stoked that we got to
Thank you,
reconnect
Kelly.
through this. And
I know.
now that we have realized we're only an hour and a half away from each other in Florida, we will definitely
Yes,
spend a little day together.
we definitely have to. We definitely have to.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Transform with Travel podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode of inspiration, adventure, and exploration. If you felt inspired by this episode, please rate and review in whatever streaming app you're listening from. This allows us to spread the word even more and continue to serve up weekly doses of adventure. As always, we'd love if you could share the episode with someone in your life who you think will benefit from this conversation. Thanks so much for listening. This is your reminder to get out there and keep on exploring.